Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 2, verse 117. The chapter is entitled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we're happy to have His Grace Dronacharya Prabhu from ISKCON, Philadelphia. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please
Hare
accept
Krishna.
my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna devotees. Great to be with you on this Monday morning.
And it's all yours, brother.
Apologize for the late start. Just again, some school traffic, dropping off the kids. We're again happy to be here today. Let's jump into it. Jaya
Yes,
Jaya
go right
Shri
ahead.
Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, 2:117. Meter I always get mixed up on with this.
Me too.
Siddhanta Valiya Chite Nakara Alasha Iha Haite Krishna Lage Surida Manasa Siddhanta Valiya Chite Nakara Alash Iha Haite Krishna Lage Suridha Manasa Siddhanta Valiya Chite Nakara Alasa Iha Haite Krishna Lage Surida Manasa. Synonyms: Siddhanta, conclusion; Valiya, considering; Chitte, in the mind; Nakara, do not be; Alas, lazy; Iha, this; Haite, from; Krishna, in Lord Krishna; Lage, becomes fixed; Surida, very firm; Manasa, the mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Purport. There are many students, in spite of reading Bhagavad Gita, misunderstand Krishna because of imperfect knowledge and conclude him to be an ordinary historical personality. This one must not do. One should be particularly careful to understand the truth about Krishna. If because of laziness, one does not come to know Krishna conclusively, one will be misguided about the cult of devotion. Like those who declare themselves advanced devotees and imitate transcendental symptoms sometimes observed in liberated souls. Although the use of thoughts and arguments is the most suitable process for inducing an uninitiated person to become a devotee, neophytes in devotional service must always alertly understand Krishna through the vision of the revealed scriptures, the bona fide devotees, and the spiritual master. Unless one hears about Sri Krishna from such authorities, one cannot make advancement in devotion to Sri Krishna. The revealed scriptures mention 9 means of attaining devotional service, of which first and foremost is hearing from authority. The seed of devotion cannot sprout unless watered by the process of hearing and chanting. One should submissively receive the transcendental message from spiritually advanced sources and chant the very same message for one's benefit, as well as the benefit of one's audience. When Brahma described the situation of pure devotees, freed from the culture of empiric philosophy and fruitive actions, he recommended the process of hearing from persons who were on the path of devotion. Following in the footsteps of such liberated souls, who are able to vibrate real transcendental sound, can lead to the highest stage of devotion, and thus one can become a Mahabhagavat. From the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami, Madhya Lila 22:65, we learn, Shastra Yukte Sanipuna Drida Shraddha Yanra Uttama Adhikara Se Tare Samsara. A person who is expert in understanding the conclusion of the revealed scripture and who is fully surrenders to the cause of the Lord is actually able to deliver others from the clutches of material existence. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Upadeshamrita 3, advises that to make rapid advancement in the cult of devotional service, one should be very active and should persevere in the executing of duties specified in the revealed scriptures and confirmed by the spiritual master. Accepting the path of liberated souls and the association of pure devotees enriches such activities. Imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas and who therefore imitate the previous acharyas, but do not follow them in principle, are condemned in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.24 as stone-hearted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented on their stone-hearted condition as follows. Bahirashu pulako shaturapiyar dvidayam navikreta tad asham saram iti kanish tat karinam eva ashu palakari matvave pi ashem sara vidayantra Dindasha. Those who shed tears by practice, but whose hearts have not changed, are known to be as stone-hearted devotees of the lowest grade. Their imitation crying, induced by artificial practice, is always condemned. The desired change of heart referred to above is visible in reluctance to do anything not congenial to the devotional way. To create such change of heart, conclusive discussion about Sri Krishna and his potencies is absolutely necessary. False devotees may think that simply shedding tears will lead one to the transcendental plane, even if one has not had a factual change of heart. But such a practice is useless if there is no transcendental realization. False devotees, lacking the conclusion of transcendental knowledge, think that artificially shedding tears will deliver them. Similarly, other false devotees think that studying books of the previous acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophies. But Srila Jiva Goswami, following the previous acharyas, had inculcated the conclusions of the scriptures in the six these called are Sat Sandarbhas. False devotees have little knowledge about such conclusions, fail to achieve pure devotion for want of zeal in accepting the favorable direction of devotional service given by self-realized devotees. Such false devotees, like impersonalists, who also consider devotional service no better than ordinary fruitive actions. Om Agyanata Varandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashtatatmane Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The verse once again, a sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Mother Anasuya wrote in the chat, what a powerful purport. Yes, very, very, very strong. And when I read this verse yesterday, what immediately came to mind is that there is a strong distinction between becoming philosophically clear and using that clarity to advance and attach oneself to Sri Krishna, and versus becoming, acquiring knowledge and using that to enhance one's own false ego. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about by gaining knowledge, one is in the mode of goodness is characterized by illumination or being in knowledge. But if that knowledge is not applied to self-realization, it won't attach us to Krishna. And what will happen is we'll just become conditioned by that knowledge to think that we're smart, we're intelligent, we're better than others. We can defeat somebody in logic and argument. And we become proud. And that pride continues to put us here and let us remain in this material identity. And thus we have to remain in the material world. So the process of acquiring knowledge is extremely important, and it must be followed. Otherwise, we'll fall victim to some of the warnings that are given here that Srila Prabhupada has given us in this purport. Let's take a look at some of them. Just kind of rolling through the purport. One, Srila Prabhupada starts off is not quite knowing who Krishna is, and considering Krishna just to be a great person, a person who spoke philosophy, a great historic personality. Srila Prabhupada mentions this in the very beginning. That Krishna knows, I understand what Krishna knows. Krishna speaks, this philosophy, it makes sense. But out of envy, one may not consider Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada mentions we have to conclusively understand the position of Krishna. We have to understand our position as spirit souls and the conclusive truth of Krishna as Ishvara. These are the first two principles of the Bhagavad Gita: Ishvara, the supreme controller, Krishna, and the Jiva, the living entity. So there's a couple places in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna declares, his supremacy, and then also there's a couple places where Arjuna, and it's not so much Krishna declaring his supremacy, because anybody can declare their supremacy, but when they're accepted in this way, that is very powerful. And not only accepted by others, but accepted as great authorities. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, after Krishna had explained to Arjuna his glories, that he is the source of all the spiritual and material worlds, and how one can get to know him by devotion. And actually, through Krishna's mercy, one is actually able to, that one becomes illuminated and enlightened only by Krishna's mercy. Arjuna, he states, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhu. You're the original Lord, you're the original Supreme Lord. He says, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, the original person, the unborn, and the greatest of all. And then he follows it up with all the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas. And these are powerful names in the Vedic tradition. These are the ones you learn about, who are the originators and like the forefathers of devotion and philosophical thought. Of course, Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, Narada Muni, the great sage who travels, from planet to planet, enlightening and delivering, the fallen conditioned souls, Asita and Devala. And they confirm this truth about you that you are now declaring to me. So it's very important that we understand Krishna. In fact, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we're celebrating the Bhagavad Gita this month. Is the Gita Jayanti took place last week. So this month we dedicate to glorifying and learning more about the Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya tells Dhritarashtra, and telling the audience, ourselves, that anyone, actually Krishna tells Arjuna, that anyone who studies this sacred conversation of ours will worship me by his intelligence. So understanding that who Krishna is one has to, this is extremely important. The supremacy of Lord Krishna as the absolute truth. The next part is the part of the warning, is the warning of imitation. We have to follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas, of the great devotees. But we shouldn't prematurely or falsely imitate their realization, nor any of the behavior or symptoms that they may have. When we read about and actually physically observe the behavior of liberated souls, this is attributed to their dedication, commitment, love for the Lord, and the relationship or reciprocation that the Lord has with them. So to observe that actually gives one more and more faith. It's actually said that the development of faith is based on the association of people who have that faith. But how to associate and what to receive from those devotees is very important. It's not that we simply just try to imitate and be like them, talk like them, walk like them, speak to others like they speak. We should observe and understand the nature of those conversations, but never ourselves feel ourselves qualified to simply reiterate without proper knowledge and understanding. In other words, everybody has their, what is called adhikar, their level of qualification, their level of advancement. If you speak or act beyond your level of understanding, then you'll get yourself into trouble. And this is true in the many ways of performing devotional activity. I'll give one example of singing. We have this very nice devotee who's at the temple. They're young here in Philadelphia, and they really like to sing. You could tell that they're very dedicated to it. But their physical ability has, their voice range is only so much. And without proper training, it'll only remain in that same area. Meaning they can't hit really high notes and they can't go really low. They just have to stay in their range. And I understand that because I'm one of those people. I've not been gifted with one of these voices that you see from some devotees that just have really angelic voices. And it's not necessary. You can still glorify the Lord and you can still perform kirtan very nicely. But you have to know where you are and you have to know your limits. And if you don't, it'll become very apparent really quickly when you try to hit a high note or you try to change key and it doesn't work and everybody just says, whoa, and it throws off people's meditation. But if you don't know that, or you think it doesn't apply to you and you try to maybe imitate one of these great kirtaniyas and go, to a high note or change key, then all of a sudden it becomes a disturbance. However, if you stay in your zone, to your level of understanding, your level of realization, your adhikar, or your physical limitations, then things can actually be very nice. However, the opposite can actually be very destructive. So the same thing in speaking philosophy. Oftentimes, we were talking, going on book. We went on book distribution on Saturday, And we're talking to two devotees who were going out, who always said, we feel very uncomfortable because I feel I don't know so much. And he said, well, one, you know more about Krishna than whoever you're going to meet on the street. So you don't have to overwhelm them with knowledge about Krishna. Tell them something very simple that you know. Doesn't have to, you don't have to quote from the nectar of devotion or nectar of instruction. I said, let's just read a couple of verses from the Bhagavad Gita and let it bring a remembrance of some of the knowledge you know from the Bhagavad Gita. I said, that is the beginning. That's what people need. You know, you're a spirit soul. You think you're a body, but you're truly a spirit soul. You know, talk about karma, reincarnation. You know, why things are happening according to the laws of material nature. And actually how we're completely different from all of this. And this world is just an illusion. I mean, just little fundamental principles. And we may listen to lectures from other great devotees right beforehand to get inspiration. And then we may try to imitate that and repeat it. But for some reason, it doesn't stick. We may listen to a conversation with Vaisheshika Prabhu, you know, talking about book distribution. And you may say, wow, that was amazing. I'm going to try that when I'm out. And then you try it, and it doesn't stick because it's not we don't own it. It's not our realization. We haven't fully understood it. And then when we try to imitate something, it doesn't work because it has to become, we have to own it. It has to become ours in our level of realization. So we should hear from others. Get the inspiration from great devotees. But falsely false realization, false imitation will not enhance our devotion, but actually lead to the path of disturbance and destruction within our lives. Taking it even a little bit further, some misguided devotees, they look at the ecstatic symptoms or the transcendental behaviors as to be the goal of spiritual life. And therefore, they may say that, let me just try to impress others by exhibiting some of these behaviors, so that everybody will look and say, oh, what a wonderful, what a wonderful devotee. Oh, wow, he's really special. He's really advanced. And sometimes it's without proper guidance or is without proper understanding. This is not impressive to Krishna, because Krishna actually knows who we really are. As well as a spiritual master, he knows who we really are. And for the most part, most of the educated devotees, educated not in the material science, but educated in the process of devotional service, also will not be fooled. It is just kind of the neophyte that may be a little bit swayed, and impressed. But this is not what we're going after. The condition, and what it speaks to is a nature, a lower nature within the living entity that has the desire for recognition. It has the desire to become the center of attention. That is our original mistake, our original sin, is that we wanted to be the center and not Krishna the center. Because of that, Krishna had to arrange for this material world to exist, which is a very huge organization. For the living entities that wanted to be separate from Krishna, that wanted to experience how they were the center. They wanted to be God, envious of Krishna's position. They wanted the attention and the attraction to be towards them. So Krishna has created this material world. And if we're honest about it, it hasn't worked out so well for us. We've received many repeated births, which also means we've received many repeated deaths. Been in material bodies, which we've had to go through and suffer again and again in different types of species. We are inflicted by the modes of material nature. We get this mind that drives us to acquire and please the senses, which actually doesn't bring about satisfaction, but only brings about greater distress. But because we wanted to be the center, Krishna had to create this illusion that we could be the center. Like I said, it hasn't worked out very well for us. Or as they say oftentimes in material activities, how's that going for you? How are you making out with that? Not very good. So Krishna has sent his pure devotees into this world to bring transcendental knowledge, to guide us down the path of self-realization so we can travel the path back home, back to Godhead, to Krishna. However, along that path, one of the greatest hurdles is this idea of I, me, mine. What about me? And we may take to with thoughts that actually, I want to be somebody important. I want to be somebody big. And we're still holding on to that fault that has, got us in this material world to begin with, but yet we're just applying devotional principles to it. We're just trying to enjoy it in a different way through the devotional process. And this will lead to a fall down. In purport, it talks about shedding tears falsely. Somebody crying out of, or maybe passing out in kirtan. We're trying to show off by, asking some high philosophical question that maybe they know the answer to because they researched it and they want to play, gotcha with devotees to impress them. Or maybe they'll try to perform some penance and austerity, and they'll walk around declaring that, oh, I'm fasting and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I don't take this and I don't. And then you wind up, and then a lot of times these devotees, they wind up having spiritual problems later on. Because Krishna is not asking that. Srila Prabhupada is very clear. Our gurus are very clear. Chant 16 rounds of the holy name daily. Follow the 4 regulative principles. That is our austerity. Yeah, we may take one little things here and there under guidance from the spiritual master. But that is our austerity. That can never be abandoned. We cannot substitute those with other things that we may invent or want to do. We study the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and other sacred scriptures morning and evening. We try to surround ourselves with positive devotee association, people that remind us about the purpose of life. And we try to see all our activities in connection with Lord Krishna as devotional service. If we work, we offer the fruits of our work, which is our money, to the Lord, as much as we can, given our situation in life. And then when we meet people, to our best of our understanding, we try to show them the path of Krishna consciousness. On our own, we may not be able to change a person's heart. In fact, our hearts may not even be fully changed ourselves. But if we introduce them to a pure devotee in Srila Prabhupada, their hearts can be transformed. And that is, to me, the conclusion of this purport, is the transformation of heart. And that's what we're talking about. It can't be imitated. It has to be genuine. Sincere. The word sincere comes from I believe it's a Latin word, sincere. And my understanding is there used to be this rock that was quarried back in the ancient Roman times. And the rock that was quarried was without any crack, any type of vein that would run through it. And that was considered to be like kind of perfect, unstained, without cracking. But then business people would find some impure marble and granite and stone, and they would find it had these big veins or cracks in it. And they would fill that with some type of grout or wax. And then they would sell it as if it was complete or pure. Then what would happen is people would build with it, take it into their homes, and then over time, that wax would start to separate due to the heat and the cold. And then you'd be able to see it. And they would say, this is not sincere. So we have to be genuine. We have to understand where we are and stay in stay with it and purify our existence. Not imitating that we are pure, because it will be exposed. Now, the qualities of a person who is a liberated soul, I wanted just to speak on that for a moment. Parvata Muni, he told Narada Muni, he says, you are a touchstone. You have the ability to change iron to gold. And they say, why is this? He says, because Narada Muni had the ability to touch a hunter and elevate him to a perfect Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that a Vaishnava can be tested by seeing how good a touchstone he is. That is, by seeing how many Vaishnavas he has made during his life. A Vaishnava should be a touchstone so that he can convert others to Vaishnavism by preaching, even though people may be fallen like the hunter. There are many so-called advanced devotees who sit in a secluded place for their own personal benefit. They do not go out and preach the message of Krishna consciousness. And therefore, they certainly cannot be called sparshamani or advanced devotees. Kanishta Adhikari devotees cannot turn others into Vaishnavas. But a Madhyamadhikari Vaishnava can do so by preaching. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised his followers to increase the number of Vaishnavas. Yari deka tarikaha Krishna upadesh, amara agaya guru hanatara edesh. And then actually, Srila Prabhupada quotes, actually, this is the purport, but he later on he quotes this purport that we're in today. But it says it's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wish that everyone should become a Vaishnava and Guru. Following the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and disciplic succession, one may become a spiritual master, for the process is very easy. One can go everywhere and anywhere and preach the instruction of Krishna. So it is the desire of Lord Chaitanya and the Guru Parampara that everyone make rapid advancement, spread the message of Krishna consciousness in a genuine way, not to imitate and do it for one's own personal glorification. The way we do it is follow in the footsteps, not artificially imitate, but sincerely following in the footsteps of the great souls who have come before us. And there are 3 checks and balances to understand that we are on the right path. That if we're speaking something or doing something, is it confirmed by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? And that is also referred to here in this purport. That is this something that the spiritual master has said, that the other great acharyas have said, and that we can find conclusion in the Shastras? If not, we better leave it out. Otherwise, we run the risk of our own mental speculation. Again, very powerful purport. We want to travel down the right path. Lord Chaitanya coming down, Srila Prabhupada, they have created this path for us to travel. They've made it very clear. And when you look at the Vedic paradigm and the various different processes that needed to be done in the past, they've made it very easy for us. We don't need to become munis. At one point in the Bhagavad Gita, they say a muni actually develops his own philosophy, and they have to argue their own philosophy. We don't need to become, we just need to become servants. We need to become followers of the greatest servant, and Srila Prabhupada. That is all we need to do. Follow in the footsteps. Therefore, we'll always be protected. And following in the footsteps will always follow Srila Prabhupada back home, back to Godhead. As for understanding the scriptures, it's extremely important because we have to strengthen our mind. Our mind can be our greatest friend as well as our greatest enemy. It becomes our greatest enemy if such knowledge that we acquire actually pulls us away from Krishna. If we think that we are too smart, it becomes our greatest friend if it actually reveals our fallen condition and how without the mercy of the Lord, we will never achieve true spiritual enlightenment. Knowledge brings about humility. Misguided knowledge brings about pride. When Srila Prabhupada was on his way to America, he didn't say, Krishna, now I have acquired everything. Now I've studied Bhagavad Gita. Now I'm about to embark upon the mission and to bring all these people back to you. It wasn't about I, it was about I. When he spoke about I, he spoke about, I am so unqualified. Krishna, if you so desire, please make my words suitable for their understanding, for I am unqualified. It's because Srila Prabhupada was so educated that he understood the position of the living entity is completely dependent on Krishna. And that is true knowledge. Okay. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here, see if there's any comments or questions. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada, thank you so much, Dronacharya. Such a meditative class, so deep and, like I said, powerful purport. Almost every sentence, there's a clear instruction. It's like so amazing. And actually, as you were speaking about this devotee in your temple, about singing, I've been wanting to ask you for so long that you sound like you sang in a choir before, Dronacharya. Were you a choir boy by any chance?
No, I was. I mean, I had to because we had to choose either band, orchestra, or choir, and I could never play any instruments. I'm just not.
So you chose the choir, right?
Person, so I chose the choir, but I didn't really follow. I wasn't one of those standout people by any sorts. I have to say, I don't think I have. Yeah, no, I'm not one of those.
I have to say that you sing like a choir boy. I said he's got to be in the choir sometime. It sounds so nice.
If it is, it's because there's some filter that Krishna is putting on. If you hear anything good come out, there's like a filter that Krishna transmits those sound waves somehow.
Thank you.
To devotees to hear, or bearable at least for the devotees to hear. But
that was so nice.
There's no natural gift from me.
Definitely. I've been wanting to ask you that for such a long time. So I'm glad that Krishna arranged this moment, but such a nice class. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, any reflection or thought, please do unmute yourself or you can raise your hand. But let me see before I ask my question. There's a verse, a line, like I said, Drona, every line in this purport is like we have to go back and read, and I started writing my notes in my notebook because it's so powerful. But there's one question that I have that popped up and I'm trying to find it in here. Okay, there it is. Who is classified or categorized as a bona fide devotee?
It's a good question. So when I read this, I took it to mean Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, so because they have the spiritual master, the revealed scripture, and the bona fide devotees. So the bona fide devotees can either be contemporary, or they can be, meaning the ones that are living right now. Or they can be the acharyas and devotees from the past, devotees that have written the songs, they've written, various different types of books, they're in the Guru Parampara. So they're bona fide. Bona fide means that they're genuine or following the process. Typically, so there's three gradations of advancement of the devotee, and even within them there's kind of large, it's a big categories. Just like you can go from like 0 to 30%, 30 to 60%, and then 60 to 100%. So there's a big jump, whether you're at 0% or 29%, you still may be in a certain category. Excuse me 1 second, my alarm's going off. I just want to. So the Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama Adhikari. And a lot of times it's referred to as in the terms of the Madhyam Adhikari. The quote that I was reading from Srila Prabhupada when he's saying like the Madhyam and the Uttama Adhikari, they have the ability to begin to transform the hearts of other people, because their faith is strong, and their knowledge is strong. Between the Madhyamadikari has, distinguishes between kind of who is devotee and who is not. The Uttama is just completely transcendental and sees himself to be actually the fallen. But in order to be able to preach the message of Krishna consciousness, be able to make that distinction has to be there. And therefore, they're like touchstones. They're able to transform the heart from stone or iron-hearted to soft-hearted. And so they're able to transform, metal into gold, or iron into gold. Because of their faith, their example, and we see this, right? I mean, there's people, you bring people in their presence and they're just like, wow, I'm a changed person. Wow, oh my gosh, and we've seen this. I mean, we've seen, we could take Srila Prabhupada, how many people, was he able just by his presence, or just, some people say, he just looked at me and, oh my gosh, it changed my life. Like my whole life was changed. I said, I have to surrender to this. Just hearing him chant, oh my gosh, I heard this voice and it was changed. And we see that even with contemporary devotees. Some of the great spiritual masters that are on the earth today, who recently passed, their lives are physically changed, have changed course due to the presence of them in their lives. The potency of carrying Krishna and being able to convey the message of Krishna are there. If we're not on that level, we can still do service. It's not that we're useless. We can still convey that message. We can still preach. Our level of effectiveness may not be the same, but our job is to bring those souls into their presence, to be able to guide them and guide them to Srila Prabhupada, guide them to reading Srila Prabhupada's books and receiving Srila Prabhupada's instructions, guide them to take to the process of initiation, where they can commit their lives and under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And also ourselves, because it was very clear, Lord Chaitanya wanted everyone to become guru. And Srila Prabhupada says the same thing. He says that in Mayapur, His Grace Kalakanta Prabhu was saying, was repeating this. He said he looked out and he says, I see all these acharyas sitting out in the audience. Like he wanted everyone, to raise themselves to that level of commitment and effectiveness in Krishna consciousness, where all his disciples would become touchstones, not just one, but he wanted all of them to become these touchstones and go from town to town, village to village, transforming the hearts, of all the fallen, the fallen souls. Anyway, there's just some thoughts from my side.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, amazing. And you're right. I've heard Prabhupada say that all his disciples will be touchstone. That was pretty powerful, but yes. And I also like the point that you said that one who follows Guru Sadhu Shastra is definitely a bona fide devotee, because we're following the principles. So yes, thank you so much. Amazing points. Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts? In fact, well, let me have others ask if there's any questions they have or comment, or anything that's coming to their minds. It's a pretty powerful class. One point that really struck out for me, and I'm trying to find that paragraph, was something with argument. I'm trying to think where I saw that. Oh yeah, wait, Krishna. My mind is playing games. It was a very powerful, oh yeah, right here. Advises, this is very powerful. I felt for me, Dronachar, advises that Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita third advises that to make rapid advancement in the cult of devotional service, one should be very active and should pursue in executing the duties specified in the revealed scriptures confirmed by the spiritual master. To me, that was very, very, very strong. I mean, this whole purport is like powerful.
Yeah, and that came from the Upadesh, the nectar of instruction,
Yeah.
the third verse.
Yeah.
It says, I'll read it real quick. There are 6
Please.
principles favorable to execution of pure devotional service: being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient, act according to the regulative principles of such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees. And 6, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service.
Wow. Powerful, really powerful, amazing. And Parikshit put a point, very good class, Prabhu, very informative, absolutely. And purport has to be read again and analyzed. Yeah, I know I have to go back. I started writing 2 points, but I said, no, wait, let me just go back and do it properly. It's such a powerful point. Yes, absolutely an amazing point. Thank you so much. Any questions from devotees, any thoughts, any, reflection on this really powerful class? And I like the point where Srila Prabhupada said a change in heart. I was just reading it just now. The desire, this was powerful for me, that the desired change of heart referred to above is visible in the reluctance to do anything not congenial to the devotional way. That was powerful for me too.
Yeah, that is is visible in the reluctance. So, when a devotee's heart is changed, they're not interested in the same activities that they used to be. And we see that all the time. Even when a person, starts on the path of Krishna consciousness, one of the things that happens right away is they're just like, I'm not interested in the game anymore. I'm not interested in the stock market. They just want to learn more about Krishna. They just want to soak it up. Now, as time goes on, if they don't keep that enthusiasm, Maya can re-enter into their lives again. And therefore they say, you don't want to, in the beginning, they're too high, too low. You have to really try to prevent that. But the visible change of heart, where the person just, as one becomes nishta or fixed, in the later stages of devotional life, they just don't have, there's a visible reluctance. I'm just not interested. Hey, do you want to go? No, not really. I'm not interested. The interest isn't there. To talk about mundane things, to go visit mundane places. Want to go on vacation to Disneyland? No, not really. Do you want to go to, not really. Do you want to go Rath Yatra? Yeah. Do you want to go to Vrindavan? Yes. So it's just a change of priority and attraction. And that can become very visible.
You're right. Yeah, and I think the key word here is visible, because it should be visible with, and I think visible with humility, because it's not like we just go around and proclaim that I have a change in heart, but then it's not visible in our actions, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was a pretty powerful one too. And that's a nice post by Shaurabh where he said, Hare Krishna Prabhu Pranam Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. It's always very nice to hear from you. So yeah, he likes your classes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Such nice topics, yes.
Prabhupada.
And if there are no questions, a humble reminder to devotees to please join us this evening as we continue with hearing from Shri Prabhupada on Bhagavad Gita called Shri Prabhupada Says. We'll be continuing with chapter 1, verse 44 today with a beautiful lecture by Srila Prabhupada. So please do join us this evening at 6 o'clock. Until then, thank you so much, Dronacharya Prabhu, for a really deep food for thought class. Amazing purport, amazing points. And thank you to all the devotees for joining us. Vancha Krapadabyascha, Kripasindabevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
You always give me, I was going to say, you always give me the best verses too. You always give me ones with great purport. So I don't know how you arrange it
Drona,
that
I
way,
think
but,
it's,
right,
I think it's the Lord's arrangement because I just go by the order on the verse.
For
I
some
get
reason
the
I always
most
get the best,
difficult
I get the
ones.
best purports,
I get the ones where I have to crack my head like, oh my God, this is very intense. But you get the really nice, juicy ones. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Have a wonderful day.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.